Hey, it's Lara here. So, this isn't my typical kind of video, but I wanted to talk to you about something. So, here I am in my living room. It is the eve of my 51st birthday, and I'm surrounded by cats who hopefully don't interfere too much. And I'm wearing my So Far So Good t shirt, which I actually bought right before my 50th birthday. And this is kind of tongue in cheek. It's so far so good. I'm still here. Does it mean so far so good? Everything's awesome? Nope, doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that at all. Um, it's been a challenging. It's been a challenging week, and if I'm being honest, it's been a challenging 51 years. So there has been, a lot of shitstorms happen in my life. And what I realized from this last, crisis that's still being managed is that I'm a lot more resilient than I used to be, than I ever was before. I can cope a lot better. I can ride these waves a lot better. I bounce back faster. I can generally navigate the ups and downs that come in life with a lot more ease and, you know, just acceptance and wisdom. And wisdom doesn't always come with age, right? It depends on what you learn from your experiences. So, but my point is that in the past, like 10, 15 years ago, even, maybe even 5 years ago, something like what just transpired this week would have happened, or something worse. And I would be completely reeling from that for a very long time. It would set me right off. Panic and anxiety and, rage, a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, just a lot of codependence, a lot of stuff. Okay. Oh, my two cats are deciding that they're going to choose now to have a spat. So anyways, if you can hear that, sorry. But so at one particular point, I went through a really, really challenging period. I've written about this actually on my blog a few years ago. And that's when I really started kind of diving into, all things sort of spiritual and self-help and that kind of thing. So, I've, over the years, you name it, I've done it. I've studied it. I've practiced it. I've tried it. A lot of things, right? So I can give you a laundry list. So there's been, yoga, meditation, mindfulness practice. I studied homeopathy for a while. I did some medical intuition training. I took some, Reiki certification. I was into aromatherapy. I, did the massage and the chiropractic and the naturopathic medicine. Um, I did The Secret and the Abraham Hicks stuff. And, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I've done tons of therapy. That's still an ongoing thing. But my therapist that I have now, that I've had for over 2 years now, is also an astrologer. So well qualified in both of those fields, as was Carl Jung. And another guy that we don't hear of very much, Roberto Assagioli, who was a contemporary of Carl Jung's. But they're not going to teach you that in your psychology class. Not now. Maybe one day they will, but not where I'm from anyway. Anyway, so I did all the things, right? And all those things helped. They all helped. But it wasn't until I rekindled my interest in astrology that things really started to click. So, and I say rekindled because when I was a kid, I used to be really interested in astrology. I was really curious about it, really into it. And, I dove into it as much as I could at that age, and without the internet, because we didn't have the internet back then, and so I was into a lot of witchy stuff, right? And I was a very, very intuitive, sensitive, porous kid, just as I am now. And I have, it's not my intention to talk to you about all of that in this video, but lots of different kind of experiences and things that I could tell you about. But my point is that, so I was into astrology, right? Among other things. And then in my 20s, right around the time of approaching my Saturn return, which is something that happens. Everybody has their first Saturn return. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It just means when Saturn returns to where it was when you were born, in their late 20s, early 30s. So right around that time, my sort of late 20s, even approaching around my mid 20s, I started to kind of let go of all that stuff that I was into, including astrology. And because your Saturn return is a time when it's time to grow up. And so I made the mistake of looking to other people and society and, to understand what that meant, what growing up meant, right? And you had to be responsible and do certain things and be certain ways and, follow all those societal rules. And so there wasn't really a lot of place. So my focus came away from some of the things that I had been curious about and interested in. And also there was a lot going on in my own personal life and my family and stuff. And so I was growing up in that sense that I was, more kind of had to be more responsible for, or at least I felt responsible for certain things and managing certain things that were going on. And so, I didn't really, there was no place for that. And I also, truthfully, it was like I knew just enough for it to be a bit dangerous, right? And a bit scary, because I felt like things were fated. I didn't really want to know what was going to happen, these kinds of things, right? Because things were trying already, and I just didn't want to pile it on. And that's kind of where I was at. And so I kind of let it go. And gradually over time, so I'll try to kind of condense this, but I feel like it's important. So, what happened then was, as I said, having to mature in a lot of different ways. And I got married, and I was in a master's program that it wasn't really of my choosing. I kind of got led down the garden path there. And, I did a lot of university, which I've always been a student. I love learning and teaching. So, I have a bunch of education. I have degrees in political science and a degree in anthropology and most of a master's in human development. I won't go too far into that story, and a degree in teaching and education. So, I did all these things thinking that this was what you were supposed to do. And although I loved school, I studied things except for anthropology that I felt like that's what I should be doing, right? Like I studied poli-sci because I was going to be a lawyer. Just like different things, like just not really making up my own mind about things and not really feeling like I could. And there was a lot of codependence, and this kind of thing. So, and not really knowing who I was, not being true to myself, all of that. Except I really loved anthropology, and I secretly kind of thought I was going to be Indiana Jones when I was a kid. But circumstances transpired that I did not pursue that education as far as I could have. So I got my 4-year degree, and there was no place local where I could do a master's in that. And so I ended up doing a master's in human development, and that just did not speak to me, but it took me almost until the very end before I realized that. And so I did all the coursework, and I was far way through my thesis, and my computer crashed and I lost my thesis. And that was my cue, and that was before, like, I didn't know what backing up your thesis, your stuff was and all that. That was a long time ago. So anyway, and I was miserable anyways in that program. And so, I jumped ship, and for a while I had a business with a friend that where we made soaps and all natural, bath and beauty products and stuff for pets as well. So there's a lot of that going on now, which is fantastic. But we did that way back when, and it was pre-internet and all that. So, we were peddling our wares the old-fashioned way. And it was hard to make a go of it. And then I ended up going to teachers college. And so I commuted daily for about 4 hours a day for a year. And I really did, I worked hard at it. I liked teachers college. That was pre-kids. And I thought, this is something that I used to work in daycare a long time ago. I was good with kids. I liked working with kids. And so I thought, this could be a good career move and a good, stable, solid sort of thing for me to do, grown-up thing for me to do, right? And so I did that, and I was good at it. And I got a job in teaching, a permanent full-time position right out of teachers college, which doesn't happen to a lot of people. So I was very fortunate. And I spent 10 years teaching full-time, except for some mat leaves. But during that time, I realized I wasn't really cut out to work in a system that I felt like I could do very little to change. And I, a lot of things were going on again in my personal life. And there were some, I went through this period of a very dark night of the soul. There was I wrote about this on my blog before, a lot of bad things happened in short succession. And so that brought me back to my kind of beginnings in terms of reconnecting with, the spiritual side of things and my witchy kind of roots, right? So, if you look behind me here on my fireplace mantle, you can see there's a bit of an altar. I don't know how well you can see it, but I've posted pictures of it. And I have an altar upstairs in my office, and I have little ones all around. And I've always done that. not really thinking about it. It was just something that I did. I've always done these kinds of things because I'm, born a witch. I know that might sound nuts, but it's the facts. And so, now that kind of gives me goosebumps to say that and to acknowledge that. But truthfully, that is who I am. And I, for a long time, was kind of thinking that was weird and not very adult of me and all of those kinds of things. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, but this is all relevant. So, went through all of those really difficult things, and in the process studied all kinds of methods, techniques, courses, programs, practices, blah, 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 blah. All of those things helped. And eventually what ended up happening, I left teaching. I went and worked in a healthcare organization doing staff education for a few years. At that time, I went and did a life coaching certification. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do now, right? So I left there. And I struck out on my own, and I started a coaching practice, and I was doing some writing and some contracts on the side and that sort of thing. None of which has been super lucrative. None of which has been as lucrative as teaching was. And teaching's not, all that lucrative for the amount of work that you do. Trust me. Either. But, self-employment has been another story altogether. But it's I know that this is what I had to do, right? I could not work for somebody else. So I did the life coaching certification, started this coaching practice. And as I'm helping people, I'm realizing that there's something missing. It's like, I couldn't bring, or I felt like in the coaching sort of format, I couldn't bring in the more, witchy woo stuff kind of thing. I couldn't, talk to them about what I was intuiting. I couldn't bring the astrology into it, even though in my own life, I was seeing the impact that studying astrology and knowing my own birth chart and knowing what was going on in the sky, the planets where they were at and all of that in the general collective and sensing those energies. I knew that it was a game changer for me, like nothing else I've ever done. And so I decided that I needed to shift things, and that, that sort of coaching model that I was into and that I was taught, it just wasn't enough, because I felt like I felt like I was doing people a disservice, like, because I wasn't really giving them the whole story, and we were kind of just scratching the surface, and we were kind of just kind of circling around the crux of things and that sort of thing, right? And so I started to dive deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of astrology, and eventually started to, I studied with other people, and then eventually started giving readings, as you probably know by now. And when I read for people, I always get incredible positive feedback. And people feel like they are witnessed. And, sometimes people are really shocked at what you can glean from a birth chart. And they feel like what I say resonates with them. And I know in my own personal life how knowing astrology has been. All of those other things helped. And I'm not saying don't do them. I think we need a lot of different tools in our toolkit. But what I'm saying is that astrology has been the single most profound, most helpful tool in my, toolkit. It is the Swiss Army knife. It is, the compass, really, truthfully, that helps me navigate life um, in a more aligned way. And so, my point in telling you all this is that I want you to be able to do the same thing. And being a teacher kind of by nature and by training, I feel like this is really the next step, right? And it's something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And I feel like that time has come. And so, I love doing readings for people, but what I really want is for you to be able to look at your own birth chart and read, for you to understand the language and be able to read the story of you, yourself, because that's your story. The blueprint is, or the birth chart is a blueprint of, your soul and your soul's path and, your energetic imprint kind of thing. And if you know that and you know what's going on in the skies in real time, you have context, and it's comforting, and it's insightful, and it allows you to understand why you are a certain way, and why you respond to things a certain way, and why you feel a certain way, and allows you to sort of prepare for things, and build resilience and all of that. I could go on and on and on and on, but who better to read your birth chart than you, right? You know yourself better than anybody else. And so I know astrology is gaining in popularity. And I think that's a really awesome thing. I think that everybody should be able to read their birth chart and the birth chart of their family members, their kids, their spouse. It's been absolute game changer for me. And it's sometimes difficult because, I see things, for example, my husband's birth chart, and I see things, coming, and I can talk to him about it, but he doesn't really get it on the same level as I do. But I think he'll tell you himself that it's been helpful. Just me knowing has also been helpful to him. Does that mean I'm predicting the future? No. Does that mean that's not what astrology does, right? It is. Some people want to tell you that, but and there are predictive techniques, and we can give probabilities and possibilities and all of these kinds of things. But really, to me, the best use of astrology and what's been the most help in my own life is using it as a tool for self-awareness, for healing, for transformation, for living more in alignment and helping me navigate life, right? Like it's a map. It's a map. It's not like you're not flying blind. You're not like out in the middle of the forest and you don't know which way to turn. Sure, sometimes you kind of go off route and you kind of lose your way for a bit, but then, you come back, and, it orients you, knowing your birth chart in this crazy life and this crazy world. And so that's what I want for you. I want you to be able to do that for yourself. And I'm assuming that if you're hanging around my YouTube channel, my Facebook page, my Instagram, you maybe have at least some curiosity about it, because I talk about it a lot. It's my thing. And that maybe you might want to learn, for yourself more about it and how to do it. And so I have intentions to, for this birthday year. This has been something that's been brewing for a long time, but a lot of obstacles and things have prevented me from moving forward with it in a way that I'd like. And I think that I now, I realize that it hasn't been the perfect timing until now. And so with that, watch this space. because I will have announcements to make. And I would love to know if you are curious about astrology, like where you're at with it. If you're interested in learning and, what that might look like, what you want to learn. Um, you know, I mean, I'm the kind of person who, like, everybody sometimes just like wants to know, like, tell me what to do, right? Just tell me. And that's awesome. But if we can empower ourselves, and if that's one of the words I haven't used yet, astrology is ultimately empowering. If we can empower ourselves, right, to make our own decisions and to know what's right for us and to trust what's right and to trust the greater unfolding of things and the timing and all of that, then really ultimately what could possibly be better, right? So let me know if anything I've said here resonates with you. If you have a comment, if you have a question, if you're interested in potentially learning more about astrology, and learning that with me and the way that if you resonate with my vibe, my personality, my way of going about things, my way of explaining things. And if you haven't, seen any of my YouTube videos, I encourage you to go over to my YouTube channel. I'm going to post this on YouTube, so you might be watching it from there. But if you're seeing it elsewhere, then, go over there and check out some past videos. Definitely connect on all the social media, and please check out my website, which you can get to. It's www.laranewell-barrette.ca. I'll try to put a link somewhere here, wherever this is posted, where you can get to that. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this bit of a, birthday babble with you and for you. And you'll be hearing a lot more from me. Okay. Oh, also one more thing. Don't forget, if you have not yet signed up for my email list, please do that. When I always post it on YouTube, I post it on my Facebook page. You can, check it out from my website. When you do that, you will get my free guide to working with the moon, which is a jumping off point for you to learn how to begin working with the energy of the moon. She's really important in our lives, right? On the day-to-day in particular. She really speaks to the daily ebbs and flows. And so, and the monthly cycles. And so if you, sign up for that, then you'll get on my email list, and then you'll hear more about what's coming up, okay, as well. So thank you so much. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.